Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. Welcome to today's video. If you are a scrapbooker, then you are probably also a pattern paper collector or hoarder or something like that. In today's video, I'm going to show you some ideas for how to use lots of patterns on one layout and still make it look good. I'm using this gorgeous new Honey Bunny collection and it is so super cute. I think it's awesome for spring, Easter, baby, all those kinds of things. It has a really great sticker sheet. I'm actually scrapbooking these super cute pictures from last Easter. My friend took these of my daughter. She gets some awesome photos, which are super fun to scrapbook. This one of her dog, Lucky, and Isabella is just adorable. They are best buds and they have so much fun playing together. So I had to make this one 4x6, even though the other ones are 3x4s. I'm going to start by bringing in my Versamats. These always help me line up everything really well, and I like doing two side by side. I'm using white cardstock for my base, one, because I love white cardstock bases, but two, when you're using lots of patterns, it really helps to have a light colored, a neutral colored base so it doesn't compete with all the patterns. So I'm starting off with some strips going across the two pages. And now I've pulled in this wood grain paper from my stash. I love wood grain paper. It's pretty much a neutral to me, but it does work in another pattern besides what's in the Honey Bunny paper pack. I'm using this new die set called Decorative Shapes. And I love that there's so many different shapes and most of them all have stitching on them. I also brought in this retired set for the little stitch circle because I wanted to add this little flower center in the middle of these flowers. Now this die set is going to come in key for this layout because it's going to help me really add a lot of patterns on my pages. I wanted to do some sort of border along the bottom and I was thinking about a scallop border, but then I decided I could use the flowers and have it act kind of like a scallop border. So I cut them out of peach cardstock and then I added the circles in the middle with honey butter cardstock, and they're just going to peek out the bottom there, and I think they look super sweet. This die set is new in the March-April catalog, and I will have it linked along with all the other supplies down in the description box for you. I should also mention I matted my wood grain pattern paper with Acorn cardstock. It's a perfect match for that, just a little bit darker, and it adds some definition to separate the patterns. I like having that mat of cardstock just to give them a little bit more separation. Now those little tiny strips of glitter cardstock are Seabrook glitter paper and just adds a little bit of twinkle. I love using 1/8 inch strips, and that worked out really good to add some subtle sparkle in here. Now I have matted my photos either in just white, or you can see the 4x4 there has white and the acorn color because I wanted it to match the other big blocks with the wood grain pattern paper, and I thought that would work out perfectly. Now my idea for this page, in order to use all the beautiful patterns in this pack, is to use this die from the Decorative Shapes set. And actually it has two sizes, which is perfect. I can use the large and the small, and I can chop up some of those busy pattern papers into smaller pieces and incorporate them all on my layout. I loved all the patterns in this pack. Sometimes, you have favorites or ones that aren't quite your favorite, but this one I loved all the patterns and they play so nicely together. So what I'm going to be doing is arranging them over top of the papers I already have on my page. So I'm actually putting patterns on top of patterns. I love that the Close to My Heart papers come in a pack, and usually they're quite well thought out with having some busier patterns. Either they have more contrasting colors, or they have like lots of intense design, high contrast, large designs. All those things make patterns busier, but then they usually always balance it with some smaller scale images, maybe tone on tone, more subtle prints. And I wouldn't say this pack is like the busiest pack ever, but it definitely has some busier patterns in it. And by chopping those up into tinier shapes, it definitely makes it more manageable. I want these shapes to kind of cascade across the two pages. So you can see how I started on the left side and I'm working my way across. I do want to mix between the larger shapes and the smaller shapes. I feel like it gives a feeling of a little bit less structure and is a little bit more kind of whimsical. I don't want this to be like a perfect line or anything. Now I'm going to start building on the other page, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing. One section that's all connected, it's a little bit larger, more pieces in it, and then I'm going to add just a few more on the right hand side just to tie it together and follow that design down onto the right side. So basically these shapes help pull your eye through all the photos and across both pages. This part is definitely a little bit more time consuming to figure out where all the pieces go. I am trying to spread out the patterns so I don't have similar patterns right next to each other, and spread out the sizes too, so I have the smaller size shapes farther apart from each other, and I think it worked out pretty good. Now I'm using the Spring Bunnies set. I love this stamp set. It's so cute. I did go ahead and already colored one up because I wanted to figure out what I was doing with it. I used the Colorista colored pencils, and I'm really happy with how they performed. They're a little bit firmer, which actually works really nice for fur and hair and things like that because you can get a lot of detail in your strokes. I used the Hawthorn Brown and the Oak Tree Brown. These are nice warm brown colors. The Hawthorn Brown was a little bit redder than I wanted, but I used it sparingly. So I'm going to put one of those down here, and I'm going to do another one for up on the left-hand page at the top. There's also a stamp that goes with this set that I think I want to put here, so just making sure I have enough room for that. Now, I did want to save one uncolored once I colored the first one, figured out what I wanted to do so that I could show you my process. I'm not going to color the whole thing because it is a little bit time consuming, but I will color this one bunny for you. I'm using the Oak Tree color, that's the lighter one, which is actually a pretty good match for Acorn. And when I say these pencils are a little bit harder or firmer of a lead, I'm comparing them to Prismacolor colored pencils. Those are quite soft, very waxy. These are a lot drier. And I actually really enjoyed coloring with them, using them for this fur, because I could get so much texture. I will hold the bunnies up even closer to the camera here in a little bit so you can really see all that detail. But I basically colored the whole thing in little flicks. I started with the lighter color, now I'm going in with a darker and adding some shadows. The nice thing with colored pencils is you're not racing against the clock. You don't have to worry about it drying, and you can really take your time and add layers. Now that could also be a negative if you prefer to just do everything in one pass and you don't like having to add layers, so that's something to keep in mind as well. I like that you don't really need a huge selection of colors because you can get great variation just by pressure, however hard you push, and also by adding layers. So between those two, you can do a lot and add a lot of shading and definition with one or two colors, and you don't need to have 3, 4, or 5 colors or shades of a color. Now here's a really close look at my finished one. You can see all those little hair strokes. I love how these bunnies turned out, and this is such a cute stamp. I'm definitely going to use this a little bit more. Now I didn't have a peach color for the ears, so I grabbed this light peach Prismacolor pencil and just shaded in their ears a little bit. I didn't want to leave them white. There is a set of these pencils that has a peach in it, but I don't have that set yet. It's like a skin tone set. And hopefully I will get that because I really like how these pencils perform. Now I'm going to stick these top and bottom. You'll notice they don't stand out a ton because I picked colors that basically match that wood grain paper. So you see them, they're there, but they're not contrasting. Like if I would have colored them in gray or something like that, then they would have really stood out. I kind of like how they blend in a little bit. I added that sticker for the journaling, and then I decided I wanted a little bit more embellishment. You could stop here and not add these flowers, but I just wanted another layer of detail. So I'm going to keep it simple. I don't want to add too much. By adding my embellishments in cardstock, or mostly cardstock, I think that helps break up some of the patterns because it is covering some of the patterns as well. I used Glacier cardstock on the light side, and then the little tiny flowers that also comes on that decorative shape set, as well as the leaf. The tiny flowers I cut out of that yellow polka dot, yellow and white polka dot pattern paper, and the leaves are out of limeade cardstock. They are super sweet little leaves, but they still have that nice stitching detail on them, which is a plus. And I'm just going to go ahead and add those to my flowers. I just cannot add flowers without leaves, so I had to cut some of those and slip them under there. I should mention, you saw me lay out all of the pieces, the photos, the pattern paper pieces. I did adhere those off camera because I didn't want to make you watch that twice. And now I'm going ahead and bringing in some more words. So I have this Happy Easter. These were from the sticker sheet. The Easter one actually said Easter blessings, so I just trimmed it off so that I could use the Happy Easter. And then I took one of these tabs from the sticker sheet and I stamped it with this stamp that says Thankful for Friends. And I think these are designed as like card sentiments, but I thought this worked out perfectly because these two are like best buds and playmates. And so I wanted to make sure this was where I wanted this to go. And then I'm just going to take it off the backing. I cut it out on the sticker sheet and left like the backing on it. And then once I was sure that's where it was going, I just peeled off that backing and stuck it down. Sometimes I will use an anti-static pouch on the back of my stickers and remove the sticky, or sometimes I just cut around it on the backing sheet and do it that way. This is another stamp from the set, which says Warm and Fuzzy Hugs, which also works out perfectly. These, you could use them for cards or layouts. It just happened that it works for my photos really well. And I did stamp both of those sentiments in black. I don't really have much black on my layout other than the stamped items, but I wanted them to stand out and actually show up. And I thought if I used a dark brown, they just wouldn't stand out as much as I wanted them to, especially the one that's on the wood grain paper. Now you'll notice I'm sticking my stickers down with glue, and that is because I used the anti-static pouch on them, removed the sticky to make sure I could place them and get them in the right spot. And before I committed, the stickers are very sticky, so if you peel them off the sticker sheet and just like try and lay them on there, sometimes they will just cling right away and then you're ripping paper and stuff trying to get them off. So using something to remove the sticky really does help, so I can play around and move them around, and then I just glue them in place. It's not a big deal. I went ahead off camera and stuck those flowers down. They are on foam tape, and then I just glued the little flowers on top of them. And now I'm going to use these honey bunny dots. These go with the collection, so all the colors perfectly match. I'm just trying to decide what color I want to use for my flower centers. I decided to go with the pink, and I'm actually going to use pink for the centers of the flowers, but then I'm going to scatter some other dots around and use several of the colors. I also pulled out the clear sparkles because I decided in my little clusters of dots I wanted to add a little bit of sparkle to this layout. The only sparkle I have right now are those tiny strips of glitter paper. I did think about adding some of those little shapes that I have cut from the pattern paper in the glitter paper, but it was just too dark and too heavy, so I didn't want to do that. And I decided I could bring in a little bit of extra twinkle just with those clear sparkles. When I'm doing these little clusters of dots, I like to place them kind of in a loose triangle. So you have a couple closer together, one farther away. Sometimes I do groups of 2, 3. It just depends on kind of the area that I'm putting them in. I don't think you can go too wrong, but I like to offset them and kind of stagger them and also mix my sizes. So dots like this, I love that Close to My Heart has the small, medium, and large. When there's only like 1 or 2 sizes, I don't usually like my clusters as much. I really like using the different sizes and adding that variation. I went ahead and placed the rest of my dots off camera, so you can see here where I have added them. You can see all those beautiful patterns with the stitching. I was kind of tempted to stitch with my machine, my sewing machine, around the outside edge of this page, but I resisted. I just thought it would be a nice companion to having all the faux stitching created by the dies, and I love how these pages turned out. You can see how I have the little dots around all the little embellishment clusters. And this is such a bright, happy layout. If you want to see some more layouts, check out this playlist right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.